And we welcome Dr. Vince Callahan, a brain health expert, to join us, talk a little bit about something that happened last week with the Senate Minority Leader, Mitch McConnell, speaking at a podium and just suddenly went silent mid-sentence, and they led him away and brought him back about 20 minutes later, and he seemed to be fine. Dr. Callahan, a lot of people thought that was a senior moment, but there were concerns that it could have been something more serious.
Absolutely. When you put in the fact that 2.5 weeks prior he fell, hit his head, and was diagnosed with a concussion, the two are connected.
What kind of you get a concussion, how does that affect your speech? How does that affect what happened to him?
Well, what happened to him, he could have had a mini stroke. I kind of doubt it just because of the way that things kind of seem to rebound back. But he could have a brain bleed, which sometimes small brain bleeds can take up to 2 to 3 weeks before they show. So in having that freeze, that tells me, as someone who studied the brain, that here's possibly a brain bleed going on. He's got slurred speech a little bit. His body was totally frozen. His eyes weren't even blinking when he was standing there in that freeze state. He was very rigid. He couldn't move. You'll start to see with a brain bleed a little bit of loss of cognition. I saw this in my own dad in his 80s, where he fell, had a concussion, and then we start seeing loss of cognition. We start seeing difference in speech. We saw a difference in movement. So that's where my radar goes off when I saw that interview that day.
I'm assuming that this is something that cannot be treated or cannot be fixed?
It can be with surgery if it's serious enough. If it's a small brain bleed, they usually stop on their own. But you will see kind of a diminished protocol, I guess, or system in him where he's not going to be quite as sharp. He's a falls risk now. When I look at this, if he hasn't had an MRI, he needs a very extensive MRI to see if there's any small brain bleeds going on. He needs people around him so that if he does fall, they're there to support him, because he is a falls risk, A, because of the polio that he suffered, but now because he's at his age and he has fallen, so he is a falls risk. And he needs some neurological testing to be done. We need to know really what's going on here, because he is a powerful man in D.C.
That was going to be my next question and I had a grandfather who was in his 90s when he passed away, sharp as a tack when he went. And so I'm not being ageist about this, but my question is, should we be concerned about the fact that we have, it's more than just one or two people that are running the country that are getting up there in years? Is that something we should be concerned with, or do we just kind of keep an eye on it?
No, we should be very concerned with it. I was thinking about this the other day. We have concussion protocols for athletes who hit their heads. Why don't we have concussion protocols for some of these leaders in D.C. if they fall, or if they have, like Feinstein had her event where she was a little bit disoriented. When we start seeing things like this, why don't we have some kind of concussion protocol that says, hey, wait, you now are in the protocol. Let's see what's going on. Let's do neurological testing. Let's see if you can function in your job, because, like you say, we have older people running our country, and this is a major concern.
Is it inevitable, Dr. Callahan, that once you hit a certain age, you're going to face a decline of some kind?
Yes, absolutely. Your brain matures at around age 25 to 27. That doesn't mean that it can't keep growing, because we have something called neuroplasticity, which is the brain's ability to change. But what happens as we get older, people do less things, or they do the same old thing all the time, over and over every day, and they're not creating new stimulus in their brain. Therefore, they're not growing and changing. They have the capacity to, but they just don't do it. Basic Brain 101, sensory information comes in, our brain processes that information, and then it creates a response. Well, that response is a feeling, a memory, or a behavior. And something with Senator McConnell messed up that system. Sensory information coming in, but somewhere we got lost in the shuffle of the processing, and then it created a delay in the response. That is a huge red flag that something is going on in this guy's brain.
Are there things we can do or supplements we can take or any of that will slow that regression or stave it off for a little while longer?
Absolutely. There's a lot of great supplements that you can take that are out there. I'm a big fan. I'm not necessarily promoting their page, but there is a page called BrainMD. It's the best natural supplements that I've seen for the brain. And there's things that you can take, GABA, GABA, and SANE. There's different supplements that you can take that'll help. The biggest thing with geriatric folks is to drink water. I know it's going to sound shocking, but most geriatric folks quit drinking water because logically they don't want to go to the bathroom as much. But what they don't understand is that creates UTIs. And UTIs create delirium, loss of cognition. Now you get early dementia, you get early Alzheimer's, all because you weren't hydrated. And so it all is a very vicious cycle.
You know, it's funny you bring that up. I had the same problem with my father. I don't think the man drank water for days at a time. He said, I just don't have any need or taste for it. And I said, you've got to drink water, because he was cramping up all the time. And I have noticed that. I guess you watch your parents get older and you start to see all of these things, and that could be your future too.
Absolutely. I watch my dad tell me every day that he drank 100 ounces of water when he drank 2.
Oh, my goodness.
He always thought he was drinking 100 ounces of water. Thus, from the concussion to a little bit of dementia to not really understanding where reality was going on at all whatsoever. So it's a tough process. But we've got a problem in our country with these aged leaders. We need to make some changes, not in leadership, but in how we treat them and how they are allowed to do their job if certain events happen.
Dr. Vince Callahan, thank you so much for coming on. We sure appreciate your time today.
Thank you so much.
All right.